JP Sears joining us on another Dunkin Cup of Coffee. JP, thank you so much for taking time out of the day. Want to learn a little bit about your first trip up to the majors, talk a little bit about your background, but start me out. You have the chance to make that opening day roster. Obviously, this year with the big league side of things, a little bit different with spring training. What was it like finding out you were going to be on that initial opening day roster for the New York Yankees?
Yeah, it was pretty surreal. Yeah, that was one of the best news I've gotten probably in my life. I was super excited. Yeah, there was a lot going on during spring training, with a quick spring training with the lockout. And yeah, just not knowing how many pitchers they're going to have starting the year off with guys, being shorter, not built up. So, yeah, it was an exciting feeling and definitely one that I was hoping for and, in my head kind of expecting if it happened, but also if it didn't, I was going to be ready to go. So, yeah, it was awesome.
So it's one of those things, I believe, maybe it's the writing on the wall. They put you on the 40-man roster so you can see where it's progressing. Is that moment exciting, or is it when you're actually on that big league roster? Is that like that first flutter of the heart to know that it's there, it's next, it's now?
Yeah. Yeah, I got added to the roster in November. And then, getting added in the roster, especially when you're playing in AAA like I did last year, I knew that, this year I was going to have a shot at some point to make get called up. And I didn't know when it would be or anything like that. So, yeah, that was awesome. There's definitely a big difference in the feeling of, getting added to the roster and then actually getting, put on the team and being there for opening day. That was probably the best baseball day of my life, even though I didn't pitch on opening day. In New York, in Yankee Stadium against the Red Sox, it was like a beautiful day, day game. Introductions before the game and just all the other things that come along with it. That was something that I definitely won't forget.
I think I asked Estevan Florial this last year, but you've put on the pinstripes, Rail Riders or other teams, Tampa, other teams that have the Yankee pinstripes.
Right.
And even in spring training, but how much different did that hit you on opening day, those pinstripes?
Yeah, I think it was more so the putting them on, looking around you, seeing the other guys that are putting them on, seeing like what goes along with just having a game at Yankee Stadium. So many more staff, so many more fans, huge atmosphere, a big game against a really good team. So, yeah, that's been a blessing for me to wear pinstripes so long. I've been fortunate to be with the Yankees now for 5 years or so, and I take pride in that. And there's really no organization I'd rather be with, and so it was exciting.
A couple of weeks back, talking with Hayden Wisniewski, went through basically his game day routine. What's unique about the day you're going to pitch for you? What is different from the day before, day after? How does your mentality change? How does your routine through the day change, knowing you're going to go out and you're going to start a game?
Yeah, I would say the 4 days that I don't pitch during the week are days that I really use. My mind is different than it is that one day. And the other days I use it to think about how I can get better that day, how I can get better for my next start. Using those days of thinking of the hitters I'm going to be facing that coming week or whenever it is. And, working on my pitches or whatever I want to do that next outing when I'm pitching. And then, game days more so. Even keeled with my head, trying to be just super neutral all day, just patient and, stay looking at the clock the whole day, making sure I'm on time for everything, making sure that I'm in my routine and I'm ready to go when when it's 6 or 6:30 or whatever time the game is. And so, yeah, those days are definitely different. You ask most pitchers, all of us, we have some type of routine. I like to get in the field a little earlier, I just don't like feeling like I'm rushed. I like feeling like I like waiting on things. I'd rather, be a little early and have to wait rather than feeling that rush feeling. I think that kind of that leads to your mental approach to the game as well, of feeling like you have control of the game when you're on your own time and not somebody else's time. So yeah, and game days more so just like thinking about more so competing, leave it out there, like letting those days that you put that work in, those 4 other days, speak for themselves and just go out there and compete and try and throw strikes and get guys out and get zeros on the board.
Talking with Rail Rider left-hander JP Sears, just down from the big leagues a couple of weeks back, and stretching himself back out to a starting role, it seems, right now for the Rail Riders. I want to take you back a little bit further in your life. Who was your favorite baseball player when you were a kid? What team did you grow up following?
I grew up in South Carolina, so I grew up a Braves fan. That was back in the day where they had Andrew Jones, Chipper Jones, Smoltz, Maddox is kind of out, but by then. But I would say that I grew up kind of more so an athlete in my head, more so than a pitcher. Obviously I was good at pitching, but I love playing football, basketball. I played outfield, first base until I got to college. So probably my favorite guy watching growing up was Chipper Jones, just because even though we had nothing in common this position, or but just because he's a switch hitter, he seemed athletic and obviously Hall of Fame player, one of the best third basemen ever, one of the best switch hitters ever. And he liked to hunt. I loved hunting growing up. I still do, the outdoors. And so I just felt like there's a lot of things I could relate to him. And also with, just him being such a big face for the Braves growing up and just a fun player to watch. So it was probably Chipper.
Is there a pitcher when you start to develop on that side of it and you see that that's where you're headed? Is there a pitcher that you respect their game? And it's probably all of them, but is there one that stood out to you that you wanted to emulate?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that one that I felt maybe now I'm not that much alike, but growing up I felt a lot alike was Andy Pettitte, just because he was a lefty. He was kind of like the big lefty. Randy Johnson was a little before me, and he pitched when I was growing up, but I feel like Andy Pettitte was in playoff games whenever I was in middle school and high school and all that. So I watched him a lot. That was when the Yankees were winning a lot of World Series and a lot of playoff games in the mid early 2000s, and so yeah, and the most postseason wins ever, is that right? And so yeah, probably him. And he was just a dog out there, lefty, had a great move to first base. I feel like that's kind of an underappreciated part of the game now too, is a lefty with a really good move. With the pitch clock here, I haven't done it as much, but that's something I probably keep working on, trying to get better at. So yeah, Andy Pettitte for sure. And I've actually, when I was in Tampa in 2019 with the Tampa Tarpons, he came out and hung out with us for 4 or 5 days and got to play catch with him, pick his brain. Really good guy, great Christian, good guy. And so, yeah, definitely a lot to learn from him.
I'll finish up on that, actually. You've been around the Yankees, you've been around baseball for long enough now. I don't think you're going to get starstruck, but with a guy like Pettitte, do you still have that, like, you're a professional about it, but at the same time, the fandom kind of comes out? Is there anything that's kind of like that for you?
Yeah, it's definitely less and less the later, the more years I play, and the more I'm around big league guys, and the more I feel like a big leaguer myself. But early on, 2017, 18, 19, when I was able to, there's guys doing rehab stints in Tampa or whatever it is, and he was one of them that, he was an advisor for the team and helping us out. And so, yeah, I would say at first, yeah. But Andy is he makes you feel so comfortable when you talk to him. He's just such a normal, nice, good human being that, like, I felt like after talking to him for a few minutes after that, I didn't feel like that at all. I felt like that I could just talk to him and ask him questions just like he was my pitching coach or my manager, or, a teammate or a guy that I played with before. So, yeah, there are definitely guys that give me that feeling, less now than back then. But, yeah, it was at first.
JP, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of the day. Best of luck to you with the Rail Riders this year, getting back up to the Yankees. It's fun having you on this roster, and hope to see you back in New York soon.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
And $15 Dunkin gift card coming your way for being on our Cup of Coffee.
Thank you. I look forward to using it.
JP Sears joining us. Stick around. We will catch you next time with another Dunkin Cup of Coffee. Thanks again to JP Sears for joining us on another Dunkin Cup of Coffee. Talk to you next time.